Spa in Belgium is the venue for round 13 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. It's a sunny day in contrast to yesterday's second qualifying session, which has given us a jumbled grid for race 2. That was all a legacy of people braving it out on different tyres on a wet road. But this was a qualifying session that was held in the dry. It's a fabulous circuit, and 16 laps coming up with Esteban Ocon having his 8th pole position of the season, starting at the front of the grid. Spa, of course, a venue these days for the Belgian Grand Prix. It's part of the driver development process that wherever possible this championship takes drivers to current Formula 1 venues, and the circuit to Spa-Francorchamps is one that a number of the drivers will have competed at in the past, whether it's been in Formula Renault or in other Formula 3 categories, or indeed in the Formula 3 Euro Series when that made its visit here in the past. But either way, for a number of them, this is going to be a big challenge. The grid, headed by Esteban Ocon, with Tom Blomqvist with him at the front of the grid. And these are the two drivers that have done the bulk of the winning. 5-3, Ocon versus the car of Tom Blomqvist. Antonio Fuoco it is who is third on the grid, and then Lucas Auer ahead of Gustavo Menezes, who qualified well for race 2. He is 5th. And then looking further back on the grid, one or two drivers needing to make a little bit of progress as well, such as Jordan King, who had a puncture when it came to his moment to actually get a lap time in. Mitch Gilbert's had an engine change, that's why he goes to the back of the grid. And Dennis van der Laar had an off in the free practice session, which ended up his car spinning and then being hit and doing quite a bit of damage, and that's why he is at the back, having not set a lap in qualifying. So the grid is starting to take shape. Esteban Ocon is the man at the front, and it will be Max Verstappen to line up with him for this first race. And the Dutch driver, born in Belgium, lives in Belgium, counts this very much as his home circuit. His father is on the grid, but Esteban Ocon is the man that they all have to beat. And the Frenchman, who has had only one race where he's been off the podium, and even in that at Hockenheim, when it was fuel pressure problems, he was still heading for a podium finish. He's had this remarkable season, and as we saw at Po and as we saw at the Hungaroring, if he is only second, he becomes very grumpy indeed. Ocon has high standards and is a very impressive talent indeed. Max Verstappen then lining up alongside at the front of the grid, the Van Amersfoort Racing Run car with its Volkswagen engine alongside the Mercedes engine car of Esteban Ocon. And Max Verstappen, it should say, is a man who, in his first season of car racing, has only had a couple of days here in the past in the wet in a Formula Renault. You tend to forget that it's his first full season of car racing, because straight away he's come into this level and delivers. He's a very spectacular driver indeed. Very fast, very brave. Antonio Fuoco, Silverstone winner, lines up third on the grid. There he is for Prema Power Team, the same squad that runs Esteban Ocon, but a different livery. This is the typical Italian tricolour colours for Fuoco's car. 4th in the championship, and having had a pretty bleak weekend at Po, he bounced back at the Hungaroring, and hopefully this weekend we'll be able to string together some good results. But he had an off at the start of the second qualifying session. That's put him at the back of the grid for races 2 and 3. So this is a very important one for the weekend for him. And then lining up 4th on the grid is going to be Lucas Auer, who has also had a victory this year. He's 3rd in the championship. Lucas Auer, the nephew of Gerhard Berger, the former Formula 1 racer, but also, of course, the president these days of the FIA's single-seater commission. A man who takes a very keen interest in this championship for a number of reasons. But Lucas Auer can deliver, and as we saw at Hockenheim, he can win races. But then the first of the surprises comes for 5th on the grid. Gustavo Menezes, the American driver, who is a very brave character, has put himself on pole position for race 2 and 5th for this first race of the weekend. He's also driving for Van Amersfoort, the same squad that runs Verstappen, and so he's one to watch for sure. Menezes in the Oakley-backed car, just there, and one to watch, I think, the American driver who has certainly gelled with Spa this weekend, and he will be one to watch. And then 6th on the grid is where you find Tom Blomqvist, and he is a man who has got work to do. Tom's had a bit of a yo-yo season. There are races where he looks fantastic, like race 1 at the Hungaroring, for example, but then something seems to dip, and as we saw in that second qualifying session in Hungary, the pace wasn't there, the grid positions weren't there, and he struggled to battle his way up through the field. He has had now 3 victories this season. He also had that engine change at Hockenheim that derailed the next 3 races. But if everything goes his way, Blomqvist is certainly a man that can deliver. Can he get himself onto the podium? On ability, yes, but we know that overtaking is not that easy in a Formula 3 car. Just ask Felix Rosenqvist, who's had a lean season so far. He has had 1 win. You saw him a moment ago, number 27 for the Muka Motorsport team. He won the Po Grand Prix. And he will line up 7th with Jake Dennis 8th on the grid. There is Rosenqvist, many people's tip for the championship, having been 3rd and then 2nd in the last 2 years, but it's been a bleak start to the season for him, and Felix Rosenqvist still trying to gain points. Comes into this race lying 7th in the title race, and Jake Dennis will be alongside him for Carlin, the Racing Steps Foundation car, and Jake Dennis has been improving all through the course of the season. It was Po where he got his first outright podium and has been impressive, although disappointing. A jump start at the Hungaroring cost him what should have been a good result, but Jake has raced in Formula Renault here, so will be one to watch, I think, for Carlin. And there are lots of Carlin cars, lots of different Carlin liveries. There's this, the RSF livery, there's the traditional Carlin blue and white, and then there's the Jagonia I Am, the tasty chicken livery for Giovinazzi, Blomqvist and Galile. Jake Dennis gets ready then. That'll be the final warming up lap to put some warmth into the Hankook rubber, and then this 16 lap or 35-minute race, depending on which comes first, will get underway. And the FIA Formula 3 European Championship has got a busy 10 days because the teams, having been here since Thursday, have got 2 races today, 1 tomorrow, early tomorrow, as you look at Felix Morales, who lines up 9th on the grid, the Puerto Rican, who is the lap record holder here in Formula 3. But from here, the teams have to get themselves to the Norris Ring for next weekend's activity, Friday, Saturday, Sunday activity. Couldn't really be a bigger contrast, could there, from the flowing Ardennes circuit here to the street circuit at the Norris Ring. And that will be another fascinating chapter in the story. But what's going to be written this weekend, we will find out shortly, because the countdown continues here. The race is due to get underway in just over 3 minutes' time. So very shortly, people will start to leave the grid as we continue our look down the order. Alex Torriel has had a pretty decent weekend in terms of qualifying with the 3-bond with T-Sport. Dallara with the NBE, Neil Brown Engineering, engine that's getting better and better all the time. Torriel has been in the wars quite a lot this year, in fairness. Sometimes it's his making, not always. And the same, in fact, is also true of Spike Goddard, his teammate, who starts further back on the grid on the 9th row. But Alex Torriel could be one to watch from here. Let's see what he can do. Felix Morales, driving for Team Westech. We know he's good in a Formula 3 car. We know he's been good in Formula Renault in the past as well. So that's another driver that you might anticipate to make some progress. The Deutsche Post girls leave the grid as Nicholas Latifi is the man who is 11th on the grid. His best of the season has been a 2nd place thus far. He's 10th in the title race. Latifi, again, was one of the drivers in the wars, make that in the barriers, to Po in the lively 3 races we had there. But he has knowledge of Formula 3. It was here last year. He was involved in the British Championship rounds in quite a large accident. But Latifi, again, a bit like Blomqvist, when he delivers, can go well. This should be the kind of circuit on which you'd expect the pace to come from the Canadian driver. And then for 12th on the grid is going to be the Dutch driver Jules Szymkowiak, who had his best finish of the season at the Hungaroring. He took 6th in the first race, in a race that was slightly blighted by track limits. We haven't had that many dramas with track limits over the weekend yet, but of course, this being a modern Formula 1 circuit, it could be that as people get a bit more cavalier during the race, that track limits element comes into it. There are areas where you can run wide over the white line onto that run-off tarmac. Certainly Hungary became almost farcical in the end, with so many people being warned about it. Whether it's going to be the same here, I doubt, because you haven't perhaps got the same leeway, but we'll find out as the race gets underway whether it will be the same issue. Antonio Giovinazzi is somebody who has not yet really clicked this year. The best that he's had is a 2nd place, and that came at Hockenheim. But Giovinazzi, who went well in this and in the British Championships last year, he's another of the Carlin drivers. And as the marshals on the inside of the hairpin at La Source get ready, the grid is complete. It's going to have at the very back of it Dennis van der Laar, who was also one of the drivers who proved around the streets of Po that you can overtake, and you'll have to do a lot of it around here. But of course you can get a tow, and there are overtaking opportunities around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Felipe Guimarães will line up on the 8th row of the grid, because of Mitch Gilbert's engine change putting him to the back. So Guimarães, I think, will be another man looking to make progress. Making their debut in the championship is Santino Ferrucci, the 16-year-old who did the last couple of German F3 rounds, but Ferrucci, who has been waiting to come of age before coming into the championship, did not disgrace himself at all over the 2 qualifying sessions yesterday. Spike Goddard, the Australian, lining up 16th on the grid. And Spike Goddard is somebody who, like his teammate, has been in the wars a bit. 9th, his best finish of the season for the T-Sport team. As now, with 1 minute to go, the engines are fired up. Drivers are wished well. and everybody will now flee the grid, and it's down to the drivers. Is it going to be Esteban Ocon or Max Verstappen who is going to be the man to come out on top at the end of this? You kind of get the feeling it should be a Verstappen-type circuit because it's somewhere where you need to be brave, but two contrasting driving styles. Verstappen is the man with all the bluster in it, all the urgency, very spectacular driver, whereas Esteban Ocon is, if it's not a cliche, Alain Prost-like. The Frenchman is so smooth, almost looks slow, but then you look at the timing screens and he just tends to shave Verstappen, only by thousands, but he's just got that edge. But over the course of the year, he's been much more the consistent driver. Of course, he knows far more about car racing. Verstappen making this big step out of karting, and therefore doing a very good job nonetheless, as the car's then now released onto the warming up lap. From La Source, they come past what I call the endurance pits, the old pits, down towards Eau Rouge, and then after the compression at the bottom, the climb up through Radion, heading up towards Les Combes. Everybody in the Dallara chassis. You've got the traditional engine battle between Mercedes and Volkswagen, with increasing pace this weekend from the Neil Brown engineering units. As we have a look at the grid, Ocon and Verstappen at the front, Antonio Fuoco and Lucas Auer on the second row, then Gustavo Menezes and Tom Blomqvist the third, ahead of Rosenqvist, Dennis Sarales and Toril to round out the top 10. And that is a top 10 that is full of possibilities. Nicholas Latifi and Jules Chimkoviak are on row 6. Then it's Giovinazzi and Guimaraes, Ferrucci having qualified impressively in Goddard, Roy Nissany ahead of Tatiana Calderon, with Sean Galile and John Brandt Meisner starting 20th on the grid. Hector Hurst is 21st, ahead of Michele Beretta. Sandro Zella is ahead of the car of Mitch Gilbert, the Fortec driver, having elected for an engine change because he wasn't happy with the engine he had, by being at the back of the grid after a crash in Q2 anyway. He's not really ruining anything more than just this one race for the weekend, so he goes to the back for this race with the engine change. He was going to be at the back for races 2 and 3 anyway. Jordan King will try to make progress, having had a puncture in qualifying. Dennis van der Laar misqualifying altogether. This is how the championship looks with this 82-point cushion that Ocon has over Blomqvist. Then it's Auer, Fuoco, Verstappen, Giovinazzi, Rosenqvist and Jordan King to round out the top 10. But whereas some have been on the podium infrequently, it is Ocon's almost relentless consistency over the early part of the season. Now, there is a long way to go yet, bearing in mind that this is round 13 out of 33. But it's that consistency of Ocon that has marked him out at the top. You can see how the rest of the championship looks as the caption scrolls through and the field works its way through the Cours Paul Frere, and then heading up towards Blanchimont to complete the lap. Then there will be the run through the bus stop. And as is tradition for the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, there's lots of support for drivers opposite the pits at the grandstand. There are lots of Antonio Fuoco flags, and there's also the Max Verstappen fan club with "Overtaking is an Art," the legend on one of the posters for Max's father, Jost, which we'll see whether he can make into an art form over the next 16 laps. The rookie championship led by Esteban Ocon. Yes, exactly. Not only is he dominating the main championship, he's doing it as a rookie. Now, it's his first year in Formula 3, even though he was the man that was third in last year's Formula Renault Euro Cup, so he knows about car racing. Verstappen is a real rookie, straight into cars this year, but he lines up second on the grid now. The rest of the grid you can see coming into the picture. It's a one-by-one staggered grid formation. The drivers slot into place, and there is at the back Jordan King. Ed Jones, his early season teammate, still missing as he recovers, and we wish him well after his large accident at Pau that injured his back. So get well soon, Ed, and we look forward to having him back in the championship before too long. The rear of the grid forms up, and so we get ready for what is going to be round 13 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship here at Spa. The green flag shown at the back means that everybody is where they should be. 5 red lights will come on. The lights go out. Now we're racing. Who makes the best start? Ocon bogs down ever so slightly like he did at the Hungaroring. Verstappen tries to get the drop on the outside, and to the inside went Fuoco, and he found his path blocked, and there's already drama for one of the Carlin cars. It looks like Blomqvist has gone wide, and there may be front damage as well. Going into La Source, they all survive. They plunge downhill for the first time. By the look of it, Jake Dennis has made a good start, and I think I'm right in saying that Fuoco has got the drop on Verstappen as they plunge downhill for the first time. It is Ocon in the lead. The cars climb uphill for the first time, then heading towards Les Combes. Ocon leading the way, Fuoco right there behind him, having made a good start. But now, 3 wide as they come up towards Les Combes. On the inside is Verstappen. Ocon goes backwards. Max Verstappen is going to take the lead, and going with him is Lucas Auer. There's contact. Ocon gets involved in it. Off he goes. He's got damaged suspension by the look of it. Fuoco has gone off the road as well. He's back on. But Esteban Ocon could be staring at his first retirement of the year, because I haven't yet seen the car rejoin, and it just looked as though there might be damage to the suspension. They all squeezed into Lecombe for the first time. Something had to give, and the championship leader, high drama on the first lap of the race, is out. Esteban Ocon's first non-finish of the season comes on the back of having said how consistent he was. So now the championship is turned upside down, but Blomqvist is down in 12th at the first sector, having run wide at La Source, and he may have a bit of front damage on the wing. So he's the man that needs to take advantage of Ocon's dramas, and he's in strife himself. That's Gustavo Menezes almost running out of road, going through the piff-paff, as Esteban Ocon cannot believe it. He's reluctant to get out of the car, such is his disbelief. Even when he finishes second, he looks glum. Imagine how he's going to look now when he takes off his crash helmet, as the leaders work their way through then for the first time. So Verstappen, whose bravery arguably was the catalyst of that contact, he's the man who leads the way, having had that really bold run up on the inside. Overtaking is an art. He proved it's doable, as there Menezes gains ground up on the inside as they work their way towards Blanchimont through that fast left, and then it's hard on the brakes down to the bus stop for the end of lap number 1. Felix Terrales under pressure from Felipe Guimaraes as the two almost get themselves together, and there's more bravery in the background as Latifi tries to work his way up the order. So 1 lap in the book. Verstappen is leading, Auer is in 2nd place, Rosenqvist is 3rd, Jake Dennis 4th, then it's Terrales, Guimaraes, Antonio Fuoco is 7th ahead of Latifi now, then it's Blomqvist 9th, Shimkowiak 10th. It's another jumbled order, thanks to all the dramas at La Source and Lecombe, the 2 incident points on that first lap of the race. But Verstappen is leading by over a second, Lucas Auer 2nd, Felix Rosenqvist 3rd, so it's Muka Motorsport 2nd and 3rd, Van Amersfoort Racing leading the way as the cars climb uphill. We're on lap 2 of 16. Engine screaming. Look in the background. Antonio Fuoco is on his toes, trying to gain a place. Can he do it? He's against Guimaraes, who weaves across on him and makes sure he stays behind. And Guimaraes is also looking to get past Terrales. That battle is 5th, 6th and 7th. The Puerto Rican ahead of the Brazilian, ahead of the Italian. Fuoco, remember, was delayed by going off at Lecombe on the first lap of the race as well. And so as they now work their way through Bruxelles for the 2nd time of asking, Verstappen is trying to make good his escape. Blomqvist, in the meantime, has done the best of anybody in the first sector. And Blomqvist in 9th is going after Latifi. Lower down the order, you've got Giovinazzi, his teammate, trying to gain progress as well. Downhill they come, heading towards Pau once more. In the first sector of this lap, Verstappen being caught slightly by Lucas Auer. So don't think that the lead battle is over just yet. Lucas Auer is having a go as we get a replay of the start. Now look, Ocon bogs down slightly. Verstappen is away well. Watch Fuoco. He goes to the inside, can't find a gap. Then he has to try and switch sides. Also, keep an eye on Blomqvist. He bogs down a bit. Jake Dennis gets a really good run on the inside, and Blomqvist was squeezed onto the grass by Menezes by the look of it. That forced Blomqvist out way wide. From that angle, less convinced there was damage. This was when it all concertinaed at Lecombe. Lucas Auer was on the inside, Ocon was in the middle, Fuoco on the other side of it all, and Ocon, I'm afraid, was just sandwiched in the middle, and he's the one with damage. The race leaders work their way over the timing line. 2 laps of 16 are completed, 11 tenths becomes 0.9 of a second. Lucas Auer is going after the race leader, as there Fuoco tries to make a move on Guimaraes. This is for 6th place now. Over the line they come. Blomqvist has bagged 8th in the meantime. He's got past Latifi. And Menezes is back up into 11th, having lost ground on the first lap of the race. Here comes Fuoco plunging downhill. The Prema Power Team car comes up alongside the Double R Racing entry of Guimaraes. He should be able to make this stick at Eau Rouge on the inside for the 2nd element, and he's done it. Fuoco, Silverstone winner, comes through, and now also look in the background. Here comes Blomqvist. He gets the run on the outside. Here comes Latifi to make it 3 wide, heading up the hill. Fantastic. Latifi is the beneficiary. He gets past both of them. Fantastic. He gets a double toe. And Nicholas Latifi charges past Blomqvist. And Guimaraes is the man who really loses out there. Bear in mind, this is Formula 3, where you can't overtake, people tell you. Well, you can round here, and you can if you're determined enough. And it's just been proved by Nicholas Latifi and also by Antonio Fuoco. So the 2 Prema Power Team teammates getting a little bit of progress on this lap. Fuoco then now into the top 6, and he's not done yet either. Quick word about Jake Dennis as well, because he's running in a very strong 4th place, and last time around was fractionally quicker in the first sector than Rosenqvist ahead of him, so he's trying to bring down that gap as the cars work their way through Pouhon. towards us comes Felix Sorales. He's fifth, and it is in sixth place now. Fuoco, Latifi, then Blomqvist, and then Guimaraes, who is the man who's really lost out at Prema Power Team. They're looking at a rather different result here, because as yet, none of the team's cars heading for the podium. It's Van Amersfoort ahead of Muka Motorsport, ahead of Muka Motorsport. There they are in shot. So Max Verstappen it is who leads the way, working his way now through Blanchimont. He's just done the best of anybody in the middle sector. The fastest lap of the race, though, has been set last time around by Lucas Auer, who has not finished yet in his quest to catch up. Auer was 2/10 quicker in sector 1. He lost those 2/10 in sector 2. As you look at Jake Dennis running fourth, working his way through the bus stop now. 3 laps completed. On to lap 4 now goes the leader as he comes across the timing line, and the gap is 0.8 of a second between the race leader Max Verstappen and Lucas Auer in second spot. Then it's Rosenqvist ahead of Dennis, Sorales, Fuoco, Latifi, Blomqvist, Guimaraes, Šimkoviak is the top 10, and that's about to change as well, because Šimkoviak and Menezes get themselves together. The two teammates, Van Amersfoort, second and third drivers in terms of the classification, are absolutely nose to tail. This might be a bit heart in mouth for those on the pit wall. You've got two drivers here wanting to be in the top 10 and score a point. At the moment, it is Šimkoviak ahead of Menezes. The Dutchman versus the American as they head uphill, as now look, Latifi is being monstered by Tom Blomqvist. Latifi defends, look in the background as well. You've got Šimkoviak on the inside. Menezes is going to drag past him. Yes, into the top 10 goes Menezes, and Blomqvist jumps ahead of Latifi. He goes 7th, coming up to Lecombe, and lower down the order, Spike Goddard is in the mix. Look as they all dive through Lecombe. Goddard in turn is trying to wriggle his way up through the order, and having a good run ahead of him. In 13th place is Santino Ferrucci, first time out in the championship, not disgracing himself at all. Race leaders then working their way through Bruxelles, about to come downhill once again through the so-called Speaker's Corner. So we get a replay here of Ferrucci turning his way through La Source, but then being mugged on the exit of the corner. That was Giovinazzi going past him for 13th place. Coming uphill, one running wide in the background, but everywhere you look there's a battle. Blomqvist the more significant, getting him now up to 7th place ahead of Latifi. Now there is Nicholas Latifi, who in turn has got Guimaraes on his tail. The fastest lap of the race last time around done by Lucas Auer. The gap still 0.8 of a second to the race leader Max Verstappen. And the incident on the opening lap at turn 5, which is Lecombe, is under investigation. So whether anything will come of that, I don't know. It looked like a racing accident, didn't it? As lots of hungry young chargers all went for the same bit of road. But the stewards will have a look post-race, and this isn't done yet either, because this look is Latifi versus Guimaraes as they drop down to the bus stop. Guimaraes going ahead, and Menezes buying into this as well. This is one of the best races throughout the field we've had thus far, as Verstappen has just done the fastest lap of the race. He leads by exactly 1 second, so he's pulled away from Auer as Latifi tries to find a way back up into 8th. Guimaraes has taken the place now. 12 laps, or just under 26 minutes of the race remain as the cars head downhill once more. Uphill come the race leaders. And now you can see there, Guimaraes ahead of Latifi. Menezes makes his move. He's got the run, he's got the toe. Latifi in the draft, and Guimaraes is then able to just cut out and defend. In the meantime, Fuoco tries to attack Sorales. Can't do it. Latifi, Guimaraes, Menezes coming into Lecombe, and it is Guimaraes who makes a mistake. Goes off the road. Almost gets ahead of Latifi. Keeps his place, and somebody runs way wide there out of that leading group. Sorales, I think it was. That delays Fuoco, and Blomqvist gets past him on the inside going into Bruxelles. Everywhere you look, there is something happening. So Blomqvist it is, started 6th. He was at the bottom end of the top 10 come the midpoint of the first lap of the race, and now he's working his way up the order. Time for a recap. This was Guimaraes, first of all, at Lecombe, ran wide, launched himself over the curb, and then wide went Sorales, having been battling with Fuoco. He gets back onto the road, but because those two had tripped over themselves, Fuoco was delayed, and Blomqvist goes for the inside. In fairness to Fuoco, he gave him just enough racing room there. So Blomqvist is now the man on the move. He's going to be up into 5th place, 2 places gained in 1 corner, effectively. Where next to look, Roy Nissany in the orange Muka Motorsport car, catching up onto the back of Šimkoviak. 11th and 12th these two run. And And this, don't forget, is only lap 5. Max Verstappen leads the way. He's had some pretty bad luck over the course of some races. Sometimes it's been of his own making. Mechanical drama on the green flag lap at Hockenheim, for example, that prevented him from starting. Definitely not of his making. He does need a good haul of points here. He's just done another fastest lap of the race through the bus stop, gaining a place there. Look, Roy Nissany up on the inside, gets himself ahead of Szymanczyk, so now Roy Nissany goes 11th. Bear in mind as well, as Blomqvist is gaining these places, it's good for him in the championship. He's starting to nibble into Ocon's advantage. Through La Source, Nissany versus Szymanczyk, and they've now got Giovinazzi behind them as well, and Giovinazzi is taking with him Ferrucci. Look at this, coming down towards La Source now. Hector Hurst versus Michele Beretta. This is for 22nd place, but it's as fierce as any fight you'll find. And Mitch Gilbert, who's really struggled to make progress up from the back of the grid, is the man behind them. They've also lost somewhere, I'm afraid. Alex Toril, as well as Esteban Ocon. As there you can see the battle that's starting to develop for 3rd place now, where you've got Felix Rosenqvist ahead of Jake Dennis. Can we get Jake Dennis onto the podium? Meantime, Spike Goddard gets all brave round the outside there, and off in a very big way has gone one of the Jagonia IAM cars. And Ferrucci, that makes me think it's Giovinazzi that has gone at Les Combes. Ferrucci is not impressed. What was a pretty impressive drive comes to an end. He taps his helmet as if to say, what's wrong with you? And the safety car is going to be deployed because that's quite a big moment. The safety car boards will be displayed, the yellow flags wave, and the race director, Sven Stopper, calls for a safety car. So you can see why. It is because these two have crashed out over at Les Combes. We didn't see the start of it, but there's quite a bit of damage done to Giovinazzi's car. Let's have a look. Whoa! Airborne is Giovinazzi, as Ferrucci had kind of got on the inside, almost got underneath him. I'd like to have another look at that, try and piece out how it could have started, but the net result, I'm afraid, is that the mouth-watering Alfa Romeo 4C makes a guest appearance as the safety car. This is one of the highlights of being at the World Touring Car Championship. You know, you get to see a 4C Alfa as the safety car. But Ferrucci is not amused, is he? Bearing in mind Giovinazzi is a more experienced Formula 3 racer, Ferrucci is not afraid to give him an opinion. Giovinazzi is also not afraid to speak his mind. If they've got to sit together in the medical car here, this could be quite an interesting conversation. But Ferrucci, I think, will have to keep stum. So the wrecker truck is on its way to scoop up the cars. The opening lap accident, incidentally, I'd mentioned, was under investigation. No further action will be taken. So that is put down as a racing incident. And so, as the safety car collects everybody, then let's just quickly run through the race order. Verstappen is the man who leads, ahead of Lucas Auer, Rosenqvist, Jake Dennis, Tom Blomqvist, Antonio Fuoco, Felix Morales, Felipe Guimaraes, Nicolas Latifi, Gustavo Menezes, the top 10. A word about Jordan King. He started at the back and he's up to 13th. Dennis van der Laar from the back is up to 16th. Let's catch up on some of the dramas that have happened so far in this 13th race of the championship. Ocon just slightly bogged down at the start, but of course he did lead until they got towards Radion when he was out-dragged on the straight. Look at Blomqvist here. Gets squeezed a bit by Menezes. Onto the grass, struggles to slow the car down. That Formula 1 run off tarmac stands him in good stead because he's able to drive around the corner and rejoin. But this is where it all kicked off. Up the inside went Auer. Ocon was in the middle. He bounced off Auer into Fuoco. Menezes delayed as well as he has to skip over the curb. And that is the surprising sight of the championship leader's car being craned out of the way. And this very nearly rolling car for Giovinazzi is the reason that we've had the safety car, because that was a big impact, very high speed, even going through that part of the circuit. And Giovinazzi lucky that his car didn't go over, I think. It's not just, of course, to get the cars off the circuit, it's also to try and get the shards of bodywork off the track as well, and that incident is under investigation. So the cars making their way down through Bruxelles. And this first of 3 races in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship at Spa-Francorchamps is under safety car conditions. Max Verstappen, currently the race leader. So as the cars head under the yellow flags down towards Pont, these laps count within the race duration, and of course this now makes it more likely that it will be 35 minutes rather than the original 16 laps. And there is Giovinazzi's car, and of course it's Murphy's Law, isn't it, that there's another race later on in the day, so there's less time for the teams to go away and rebuild the cars. And there's certainly rear wing damage, there's probably some suspension damage as well. We've seen punctured tyres and damage for Santino Ferrucci's car as well. So the safety car is coming up to the bus stop. The lights are still flashing. And frustrating for Max Verstappen, of course, that the lead he had built has now been whittled away behind this safety car. But we shouldn't be far off going racing once again, because at Les Combes things are almost clear. And with so many access points around the circuit, then it's easy to get a recovery vehicle out of the way. So can we go racing this time? Let's see. No, safety car has stayed out, and that's the reason as the marshals carry on rebuilding barriers. So the Alfa Romeo 4C safety car comes over the timing line, and everybody behind still weaving around to maintain the warmth in the tyres. The Hankook rubber out of La Source, ready to head downhill. And as the Van Amersfoort engineers get the pit boards ready, they have got Max Verstappen in the lead of the race. Gustavo Menez is 10th, and Jules Chimkoviat running 11th. For Carlin, it's a rather different story. Jake Dennis upholding the team's honour, and Antonio Giovinazzi's car out of the race with damage. So Giovinazzi out, Ferrucci out, Toril out, Ocon out. That's the real surprise of the race, that we have lost him. So as the field heads to Les Combes, Max Verstappen looking for a second victory of the season. It's the race he really wants to win here, more than perhaps anywhere. He lives in Hasselt in Belgium. He's born here and counts it as his home circuit. So a home victory we can count if he can come home victorious. For the moment, he's still looking at the safety car. And of course his father Jos is here as ever to support him. Jos himself still with a great following, but concentrating these days on looking after young Max's ability and his season. And the safety car will be in this lap. So as the Alfa Romeo heads downhill, now Max Verstappen starts to drop back just a little bit, so that as soon as he gets towards the end of the lap, he can accelerate and keep accelerating and try and get the drop on Lucas Auer. The race has now got 16 more minutes or 9 laps to go, depending on which comes first. And we will go back to a green flag this time. Of course, last time out at the Hungaroring, the third race of the weekend, briefly had safety car as the rain came, and then red flagged a few laps from home. So it's kind of carrying on this tradition of the slightly interrupted race. But as the cars then come through the Courbe Paul Frère and up towards the completion of the lap, then we will go back to green flag conditions this time. This is lap number 8 out of 16, or a further 15 minutes, depending on which we get to first. And now Verstappen starts to stack everybody up, comes past the kart track, possibly somewhere he's competed in the past himself anyway, and then heads towards Blanchimont. And once he starts to accelerate, he's got to keep on going. He can't accelerate away and then slow, because that just causes mayhem behind him. So everybody is stacked up behind him. Can he get the jump on Lucas Auer, or will Auer go with him? Max Verstappen gets ready to accelerate away now. The safety car is in. The green flag is ready as Verstappen almost trundles his way through Blanchimont. And as he comes out of the corner, still slowly. Look exactly how close everybody is. They're almost tripping over themselves behind. The race director may not be overly impressed about quite how slowly Verstappen has gone. Now, as he gets towards the braking zone, he starts to pick up pace, trying to get the jump on everybody coming out of the bus stop. But I think Lucas Auer has been able to stay with him. And so battle continues here at Spa. The green flags fly with 14.5 minutes to go. We're racing once more. Verstappen comes over the line, and the gap that he's got is only half a second over Lucas Auer as they drop down to La Source. It's Felix Rosenqvist in third place. The cars then now sprint down towards Eau Rouge. Just one or two more scores are yet to be settled in La Source. Jordan King battling with Roy Nissany here and coming under pressure from Spike Goddard. Jordan King is hanging on for the moment to 13th place. Up from the back of the grid and doing, as we expect, a very good job. Last year's British champion in Formula 3, Jordan King. Up through Radion, heading towards Les Combes. They come. Max Verstappen still being able to pull away, and a change imminent for second position almost. Rosenqvist had a look at Auer, diving up the inside. Fuoco trying to maintain not only his place but also think about doing something about Blomqvist. And very wide indeed. Is that Menezes getting it wrong? It is. He's lost a place up the inside there of Latifi. Goes the car of Guimaraes, so another battle developing towards the bottom end of the top 10 as the cars plunge downhill once again. John Bryant Meisner at the back of that little group behind Dennis van der Laar, trying to buy into a scrap. Van der Laar to the inside of Tatiana Calderon as they go through Speaker's Corner. Calderon all over the curb, and now van der Laar should have the inside line dropping down towards Pouhon. Just disappears out of shot, but he has the inside line as they came back into view. Lap one, Roy Nissany, lap one of the restart. Roy Nissany going wide at Les Combes, skips over the curb. And back on track, the Israeli driver losing a place in the process then. Through the pith path comes Latifi, and he's still under attack. He's put himself ahead of Guimaraes, but can't relax for a moment as the cars then now head once more through this university section where the educational buildings are, and then up towards the Cours Paul Frère. Race leader Max Verstappen works lap 9. Lucas Auer in sector 1 was quicker in sector 2 and lost 0.4 of a second. So again, it looks as though Verstappen is being able to get the drop on them here, as you can see having to defend lower down the order is Spike Goddard. Heading into the braking zone now, as diving up the inside ahead, Jordan King goes ahead, gets a place away from Latifi. Nicholas Latifi falling down the order. Jordan King working his way up as they head over the timing line once more. We've had Fuoco get ahead of Blomqvist, so he's up into 5th, and Jordan King is 11th. He's just done a decent enough lap, but Menezes is the man ahead of him who's done the best of anybody in the middle sector. So Jordan King's target now is a further 1.5 seconds up the road, but he's doing a very good job, and one more place will get him into the points. That's the next target for Jordan King, bearing in mind he started stone last on the grid. Through Eau Rouge once again, and Jordan King is under attack once more from Nicholas Latifi, who wants the position away from him. Then you've got Spike Goddard versus Roy Nissany. Nissany in the orange car goes to the inside. Sorales there losing out, is he? Because yes, Guimaraes goes ahead of him. And then the next battle is Szymkowiak and Menezes, and if they trip over themselves, that's going to help Jordan King 11th get right up with them. Just like Monza, Spa is a really good circuit for Formula 3 because of the nature of the track and the fact that you can get a tow. Certain parts of the circuit you think you've pulled a gap, but others you end up being caught. And Menezes, having done the best of anybody in sector 2 on the previous lap, has just done the best of anybody in sector 1 on this lap. And we're getting our first driving standards flag of the race as well. Nicholas Latifi is the man being warned about exceeding track limits. I wouldn't have thought he was the only aggressor, but anyway, he is the man that's transgressed first, according to the race director, and he's being warned about it. Latifi is currently in 12th on the back of Jordan King, but we will see whether he's able to get past him on this lap. As in the meantime, Auer in the first sector is 0.4 quicker than Verstappen, who is 0.5 second quicker in the second sector. So maybe it's that climb up through Radion where Auer gets in the draft and just gets dragged along in the slipstream. But then on the middle section, the twistier part of the circuit, so Verstappen's bravery comes into effect and he pulls away once again. Verstappen from second on the grid leads Auer, who started 4th, who leaves Rosenqvist, who started 7th, and Jake Dennis 4th, started 8th. So it has been a bit of a jumble as they're trying to find a way through on the inside of Sorales is Menezes, and Sorales almost catches himself out. Look, brakes too late, gets sideways. Menezes tries to get the switch back, cuts up the inside. Menezes has already got past Szymkowiak on this lap, and is therefore now into 9th place. They come out of the hairpin at La Source, and so now Guimaraes is 7th, 8th is Sorales, 9th is Menezes, Szymkowiak is 10th, Jordan King is the man running 11th, and trying to close on this gaggle of cars ahead of him as they come downhill. Menezes now is busy attacking Sorales, trying to defend from Szymkowiak. It's still a bit heart in mouth for Van Amersfoort as its two drivers get themselves together. And Felix Sorales, the Puerto Rican for Team Westech, John Miller and Gavin Will's team is under attack as they head up now. towards Les Cornes, where Jake Dennis is under attack from Fuoco. This could almost end in tears. Menezes has got past Sorales. Szymkowiak can't get through. He locks up and scrabbles a bit deep into the corner. Gustavo Menezes, 8th place. I said before the race started, as you see Sorales running way wide over the curb and into the gravel and back on the road again. I said before the race started that this is somewhere that Menezes has gelled with, and there's more evidence of it here. Bear in mind, he starts race 2 at the real pointy end of the grid on pole, and he's proved his racecraft in this, getting himself up and down the order. There, over the curb, over the grass screen, over the gravel, and back on again over the white line is Sorales. That compromises the run down to Bruxelles, so he may well lose out by another place on this lap. Verstappen again lost 4 tenths in sector 1 to Lucas Auer, but it doesn't seem to matter too much, does it? No matter what happens, Verstappen has the advantage at the end of the lap as they come then from the pit path through Les Cols, then towards the Cours Paul Frère. It is Verstappen ahead of Auer, starting the lap by 7 tenths, and again Verstappen pulls out half a second in the middle sector alone. In 3rd spot is Rosenqvist, then 4th is Jake Dennis, ahead of Fuoco, ahead of Blomqvist. Now Lucas Auer, 3rd in the championship, running in 2nd. He, of course, in turn, is going to just close a little on Blomqvist in the title race. So this could be a very significant race points-wise as you look at this great fight going on between the Muka Motorsport cars. You've got Calderon in the midst of all of this. You've got John Bryant Meisner at the back of it. There's Roy Nissany getting involved as well. Nissany is ahead, but Bryant Meisner goes ahead of Calderon. There's a bit of tar smoke ahead, and more tar smoke as John Bryant Meisner locks up. Calderon gets forced wide. Now Dennis van der Laar tries to buy into it in the Prema Power team car. Sean Gallile is at the back of it as well. Great stuff. This is how single-seater racing should be. Never mind the fact they've got wings. They're all getting stuck in. They are overtaking thanks to a magical circuit like Spa. And at La Source, John Bryant Meisner is still under attack as Tatiana Calderon tries to get up the inside. 15th place they're arguing over. Verstappen to Auer is 8 tenths, and there are 7 more minutes of the race to go. Or 5 laps, depending on which is completed first. It's going to be the time, I'm pretty convinced now. Sorales under attack from Jordan King, who gets squeezed onto the grass. Ahead is Szymkowiak, behind is Latifi, and Jordan King is trying to go through, but Latifi goes round the outside of Sorales and gains a place, does he? Sorales is sideways. He's got the inside line for the final part of Les Cornes, but he hangs on to it, and here comes King up the inside. He's got past 1, he's got past 2. Fabulous. Jordan King gains 2 places. That should put him into the points now, and he's not done yet as he comes downhill. Szymkowiak is ahead of him. Every sector, every lap, there's a change in the order, and now Spike Goddard at the rear of this is coming good as well. But have a look at this. Sideways, Sorales versus Latifi. Felix Sorales is never to be denied. He's always a fighter. He's always somebody who's proved that he's prepared to get stuck in and try to overtake, and there he was. He stood his ground. Trouble was, Jordan King, the opportunist, charged up the inside and gained 2 places on the way to the next corner. Great stuff, and that, remember, from Jordan King, from the back of the grid. He started 25th out of the 26 that we have in this race. What a drive. So Max Verstappen, who's also had what a drive, continues to lead, and he's looking for his 2nd victory of the season. He comes then now up towards the bus stop, brakes for that chicane behind Lucas Auer, 8 tenths of a second back. It doesn't sound a lot, but he's never been able to close, and even with the safety car's help, stay close enough to Verstappen to make a move. The Blomqvist-Fuoco battle, by the way, was Blomqvist back ahead of Fuoco a lap ago. That has not yet been resolved. And Mitch Gilbert is trying to gain places as well, as he now is on the back of Hector Hurst for 19th. Guimaraes versus Menezes, this is 7th and 8th. Szymkowiak is 9th and Jordan King is 10th. So Jordan King behind them has got 1 point. All this hard work, it's only for 1 point, but it's better than nothing. Race order. Max Verstappen leads Lucas Auer, leads Felix Rosenqvist. Then Jake Dennis, Tom Blomqvist, Antonio Fuoco. That's the way the top 6 looks for now, but it might change before the end. And this, for 7th, you saw, was Guimaraes ahead of Menezes. Menezes comes up on the outside, he got the toe, he's gone through. Gustavo Menezes takes 7th place away, heading up towards Les Cornes. The lap chart at the end of this race will be fascinating because so many people have yo-yoed up and down the order, and trying to cobble a race report together out of this is going to be hard work because so much has happened. But one constant, Verstappen up front. Fair play to Menezes as well, who seems to have been involved in most of the battles and has been a far more tidy and controlled driver than perhaps we've seen in earlier races this year. He plunges downhill, he runs over the white line and all over the curb coming out of Speaker's Corner. so known because it was the one other part of the track you could see apart from the old start line from the old circuit commentary box here, and Les Speaker could see that one corner in the distance. That's how it got its name. More and more of them now as the race wears on, running wider and wider at that part of the circuit. Of course, there's not much runoff, so you don't want to go too far. Somewhere that's been catching people out over the course of the weekend. It was there that Van der Laar, for example, had his dramas. Sandro Zeller has earned himself his first mention of the race, not only because he's 22nd, but because he's being warned about the track limits. That's the only thing Zeller sadly has done to draw attention to himself in the entire race, and that is to run over the white lines repeatedly. But Zeller now being warned about the track limits as we have just 3 3/4 minutes of the race remaining. Max Verstappen is heading for race victory number 2, seemingly, and he's starting to edge away even further now from Lucas Auer. Over the timing line he comes. He has now done 13 laps. He starts lap number 14 out of 16 here. It's going to be 1 lap short, I think, of the original target because of the safety car. And there you can see the top 4 in shot. Verstappen, Auer, Rosenqvist, Dennis as they plunge downhill once again. Behind them for 5th, it is Blomqvist. For 6th, it is Fuoco. Menezes 7th, Guimarães 8th, Szymkowiak 9th, Jordan King rounding out the top 10. Now, what else could change before the end? You have to feel a bit sorry for Felix Serralles, don't you? Because he's been in the top 10 for the bulk of the race. When it counts towards the end, he's dumped down to 11th. Latifi has been another real trier. He's 12th. And behind them, you saw Spike Goddard keeping his nose clean in 13th place as they make the run uphill. There, Mitch Gilbert gets involved now with Hector Hurst, who is on the outside of him and stays ahead. Hector Hurst was 19th at the start of the lap and is still ahead. And also now trying to come into the mix. They climb uphill. It is Michele Beretta. For 19th place still, there is a fight everywhere around the lap. Battles rage on, and so as the cars sprint down towards Bruxelles. 2 more minutes are on the clock. There is the race leader heading through the pith-path. Verstappen and Auer to the eye look closer. The gap was down by a couple of tenths in the first sector, but here Lucas Auer looks to be just a little nearer. Is this Verstappen controlling the pace? He should have time for 1 more lap at the end of this. Cars working their way now towards Blanchimont. In the second sector, the gap is down as well. Are we seeing, and look at what's happening for 3rd as well, they've got themselves nose to tail, Rosenqvist versus Dennis. Are we seeing stories being resolved right at the very end of the race? Because Auer now is right with the leader, and Jake Dennis round the outside at Blanchimont. What a move for 3rd place. He's going to get the advantage at the bus stop for the race lead. First of all, they're together. Jake Dennis gets 3rd. Fantastic. Launched himself up the inside. Jake Dennis goes 3rd. 1 more lap to run. Less than a lap time left in the race. The lead gap is now 0.3 of a second, and I can't believe this is Verstappen just lifting off to control the proceedings. This, I think, is either him with a problem, because that was a lap at 2:12, or Auer really now going for it. That was a 2:11.7 from him. Suddenly, Lucas Auer looks a lot more committed. Verstappen's advantage was 0.3 of a second, starting this last lap now. In 3rd is Jake Dennis, going for the podium yet again, but is Lucas Auer close enough now to make a move? Is Verstappen going to be denied? He tries to defend, and they touch there. They touch. Little bit of damage. You could see something fly in the air as Auer tries on the outside. That could have been his best chance, though. Verstappen was very robust in that defence, but he's managed to hang on to it. Will the stewards want to have a look at that? Will Verstappen be able to hang on? There's still half a lap to go, but that really is where most people are able to make the move. Was that Lucas Auer's last opportunity? The first sector, he was quicker because he got the toe. This is the battle for the lead, and I reckon Auer's car did suffer as a result of that touch, because straight away he's losing touch, isn't he? We've also got Rosenqvist and Dennis having switched around again. So Rosenqvist back up into 3rd. Number 8 is under investigation as well now, which is Michele Beretta. Rosenqvist is back up into 3rd, as you see. 4th is Jake Dennis, and Blomqvist is 5th, but Lucas Auer's car, having been clipped as Verstappen moved across the road, looks as though it has lost its edge, and so Verstappen is going to hang on to the advantage. But does the story end at the checkered flag? It may be that somebody wants a word with Max about the way he defended. It would be a shame if it was to be one of those races that ended up in the stewards' room, because other than that very robust defence, Max Verstappen has done a great job. But as the leaders work their way up towards the left-hander of Blanchimont for the final time. It is going to be a second victory of the season, seemingly, for Max Verstappen. He had his victory at Hockenheim in round 6 of the championship. It's been a bit of a barren spell since, but as he comes out of the bus stop, it's going to be 15 of 16 laps done. Round 13 is won by Max Verstappen for Van Amersfoort Racing, with Lucas Auer 8/10 back at the end. And for third place, Jake Dennis got back ahead, because not only was he third, Blomqvist is fourth, Fuoco is fifth, Menezes is sixth, and Rosenqvist is seventh, having had a drama on the last lap somewhere. Guimaraes is eighth, Szymkowiak ninth, Jordan King is 10th, and rounds out the point scorers. What a race. There is so much that has come out of that, not just in terms of the race, but individual battles, but for the championship as well. And Max Verstappen makes his way down the endurance pit. Dad's pretty happy, understandably so. And that special wide model Dallara that Max Verstappen has was able to maintain the race lead. He controlled everything well, didn't he? He got a good start. He raced well to get the lead advantage early on. He was able to control things under the safety car, and comes through to score the race victory. And as the drivers then make their way shortly to the podium, Max Verstappen's father, Jos Verstappen, looks a very happy man. Verstappen from the top two. So Max Verstappen, the winner, Lucas Auer second, Jake Dennis third ahead of Tom Blomqvist, Antonio Fuoco, Gustavo Menezes, and Felix Rosenqvist dumped down to 7th on the last lap. In 8th place, it was Felipe Guimaraes ahead of Szymkowiak and Jordan King. And you see those that were outside the points, headed by Felix Serrales. Mitch Gilbert 20th after his engine change. Dennis van der Laar 17th up from the back of the grid, but none of those drivers doing as good a job at getting into the mix like Jordan King did, with Sandro Zeller and Michele Beretta being the final classified finishers. So Max Verstappen is victorious for now from Spa, with 2 more races to look forward to this weekend. From David Addison from Belgium, goodbye.